welcome back to another week of Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with those movers and shakers, those film and TV and streaming makers, the producers, directors, writers, actors, cinematographers, production designers, costume designers, film editors, sound editors, mixers, and designers, VFX gurus, composers, stuntmen and women, and so many more. And you all know how much I love film and television and how much I like to talk. So it's an absolute joy to give you a front row seat to the who, what, where, when, why, and how of movie making with these interviews that I bring you every Monday. Unfortunately, I missed last Monday because, yes, I do like to talk, but I had no voice. So I couldn't record the show. You all know how catastrophic that is when I cannot talk, and I sound worse than a Budweiser bullfrog. So my apologies to you all. But there's been new content. I did put new content up on the website behindthelensonline.net that you could check out in lieu of hearing my dulcet tones on the show last Monday. But it's a new week, and I've got a working voice and working internet, so let's take a look at a film and filmmaker that just blew me away. Our Hero Balthazar and co-writer-director OSCAR BOYSON. Our Hero Balthazar, it marks Oscar's feature directorial debut, but is certainly not his first time in the cinematic rodeo, given his prior directing experiences with some episodics and shorts, but also serving as a producer of films like UNCUT Gems, the acclaimed Adam Sandler vehicle, and Frances Ha, as well as working his way through the various components of filmmaking, including sound recording, editing, production design, and more, giving him a nice grounding for a feature directorial experience. Now, Our Hero Balthazar is a brilliant directorial calling card for Oscar. Co-written by Oscar with Ricky Camilleri. The film stars Jaden Martell and Asa Butterworth, along with Chris Bauer, Jennifer Ely, Pippa Knowles, Avon Josia, and more. The film rises and falls, however, on the performances of Jaden and Asa, both of whom will knock your socks off. Now, Our Hero Balthazar is the story of, I'm going to give you the formal synopsis here, of a headlong race through a world where success can be measured in engagement and tragedy has become content, following two neglected teens thrown together by a chance online encounter. Privileged yet lonely New Yorker Balthy Malone, who's played by Jaden, dreams of becoming a hero and also wants to impress a girl who thinks he's a jerk and won't give him the right time of day. While struggling Texan Solomon Jackson, played by Asa, seeks recognition by posting violent threats online, most particularly of planning a school shooting. When Balthy, in an act of misguided heroism, travels to Texas in an attempt to befriend Solomon and avert a possible tragedy, he's drawn into a dangerous and thrilling new world. Despite their differences, both find refuge from their crushing loneliness in each other's company. But for all of Balthy's good intentions, his decisions are driving them close to the precipice of disaster. Now, these performances are unlike anything you've seen from Jaden and Asa over the course of their respective careers. Many of you may know Jaden from his early work in St. Vincent or The Confirmation, or later work, like with Knives Out, It, Mr. Harrigan's Phone, or the chilling miniseries Defending Jacob. While Asa stole our hearts, and flooded our tear ducts in The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. And if you still haven't seen the film since its release in 2008, I encourage you to do so now. Asa also, familiar face thanks to Hugo. Lovely film, lovely performance. Nanny McPhee returns. Plus his sci-fi turn opposite Harrison Ford in Ender's Game, as well as 32 episodes of the TV series Sex Education. And I gotta tell you, but for his blue eyes, Asa is physically unrecognizable in our hero, Balthazar. Now, there are films that entertain, films that provoke, and there are films like our hero, Balthazar, that are the kind that quietly unsettle you, linger in your mind, and forces you to confront realities you might prefer to ignore. This is not an easy film to watch, but it's an essential one. At its core, this is a story about loneliness. Not the kind that exists on the surface, but the deeper, more insidious kind that festers beneath privilege, neglect, and the illusion of connection in a hyper-digital world. The internet is rearing its ugly head in this film. In what I can only describe as some of the most surprising but inspired casting, Jaden Martell delivers a career-defining performance as Balthy, a young man whose wealth and upbringing have positioned him to do something meaningful, yet left him emotionally adrift. Now, what's most striking about Jaden's work here is the physicality. Calculated exhibitionism of grief and empathy. His tear-streaked videos, raw and uncomfortable to watch, feel less like genuine emotion and more like performance. And that's precisely the point. And you all know the kind of videos I'm talking about. Opposite him, Asa Butterfield is nothing short of revelatory as Solomon. Revelatory is the word for Asa's performance here. Stripped of the warmth audiences often associate with him, he leans into a frenetic, volatile energy that feels both unpredictable, yet painfully grounded. His rapid-fire delivery and restless physicality suggest a mind in constant motion, one fueled by frustration, neglect, and a desperate hunger for attention. The chemistry between the two of them when they get together in the film is electric. And it anchors the film in a relationship that is at once authentic and uneasy, and also deeply dangerous and deeply believable. What's interesting with our hero Balthazar is that Oscar never sensationalizes the film's subject matter. I mean, he's addressing youth gun culture, misogyny, a performative society, crying for attention, exhibitionism, exploitation. And while primary premises touch on issues of gun violence and online threats, the film never exploits these elements for shock value. Instead, Oscar focuses on the emotional and psychological pathways that lead to those moments. And the warning signs that are often so dismissed as just mere white noise in the digital void. And that's where this film becomes particularly unsettling. As you're going to hear, as Oscar and I chat, visually the film reinforces that intimacy. Working with his longtime cinematographer, Chris Messina, they adopt a fluid, immersive style that keeps us in close proximity to the characters. And what I love about this is the camera doesn't observe from a distance. It moves with the boys, discovering moments as they unfold. The effect is immediate, uncomfortable, as if we're not just watching events, but participating in them. And it's especially effective in the more emotionally charged sequences, especially when we get in the third act, where performances are allowed to breathe without the safety net of traditional coverage. There's a rawness, a sense that anything could happen at any moment, and that heightens the tension without relying on conventional cinematic cues. It's fascinating. As you break down the film, I want you to just watch the film and enjoy it. But for anybody, you cinephiles out there, as you break down the film, it's fascinating to watch the structure, the visual structure that Oscar and DP Chris Messina have developed here. Production design by Stephen Phelps and costuming by Emily Constantino further deepen the narrative, creating two distinct worlds that gradually begin to blur. Costuming and production design are very, very key here at defining and differentiating between the two characters, between Balthy and Solomon, but then blurring the lines so that, are they two sides of the same coin? Are they one and the same? It's really fascinating to see the attention to detail here. The visual merging mirrors the film's thematic core, the erosion of boundaries between identity and performance, intention and consequence, heroism and harm. It's structurally, thematically, visually, and performance-wise so well done. And what I really appreciate with this film is that Oscar doesn't offer any easy answers or moral clarity to the audience. He presents a situation that feels all too real, asks the audience to sit with it, to wrestle with their own discomfort, to question their own perceptions. From a directorial standpoint, this is an impressively confident and controlled piece of filmmaking, and Oscar demonstrates he has a clear understanding of tone, performance, and thematic weight, and he crafts a film that is as emotionally engaging as it is intellectually provocative. And as you're about to hear, he explains it all for you, but at the center of everything are the two transformative performances from Jaden Martell and Asa Butterfield. Roles that push both actors far beyond anything audiences have ever seen from them before. And that was entirely Oscar's point in casting them. It's just, to hear Oscar's reasoning and what led him to The Boys and what led him to develop the story the way he did. It's exciting, it's insightful, but then he digs deeper. So in addition to the impetus for this story and the multiple themes that are tackled, and he talks about executing and reinforcing those themes through the carefully constructed visual grammar that he and Chris Messina developed, and that the fluidity of the camera within a scene, capturing those performances in real time. It's fascinating listening to Oscar talk about this. It's even more incredible when you see the film. And we also dive into the costume design, the production design, and more. So, take a listen as director and co-writer Oscar Boyson discusses our hero, Balthazar. Hey, Oscar!
Hey, what's happening?
Not a whole heck of a lot, losing at solitaire while I was waiting to talk with you, so you're already elevating the day.
Nice.
I didn't know what to expect with our hero Balthazar. I saw the trailer and I went nuts. It was nothing like I've seen from Asa and from Jaden before. And
isn't that great?
Oh my God, how you pulled this off. And I've been watching both of them since their early films. For Asa, it was The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. Jaden goes back to, I think, his second film, to St. Vincent. And slowly watched Jaden especially change up and mature with his films and going into the confirmation that was really good, and then getting into the horror aspect with The Lodge, and then Defending Jacob, and of course Mr. Harrigan's Phone, and then he hit it big. But nothing that he's done is anything like Balthazar. And Asa, were it not for those crystal blue eyes, you'd never know it's him.
Yeah, that's, I think with Asa, with Jaden, we're really looking at the birth of a movie star.
Yeah.
He's, and it meant so much that he wanted, I knew as soon as we started talking, I was like, okay, this guy has tremendous ambitions. He's got a lot of stuff that nobody's seen before, and it is going to be a tremendous gift to the audience, and especially his fans, to show all of them, like, what he's got.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of them this is so elevated physically and emotionally, because both of these roles are really requiring physical transformation, especially Jaden as he goes into the manufactured exploitive exhibitionism of his videos of crying and snot coming out of his nose. And never seen anything like that from him, but that requires a lot of physicality to pull off that kind of emotion. And then we've got Asa as Solomon, and he is just frenetic, with amped up. You'd think he's strung out on cocaine 24 hours a day or something else, the way he just keeps going, rapid fire. And of course, that's clearly because Solomon he's competing for his father's attention, whereas Balthazar is actually trying to compete for his mother's attention, but not trying that hard for her attention. He just wants attention, period. So it's really interesting to see both of these young men and what you got out of them. What made you cast Jaden and Asa in these roles? They're obviously not the first people that come to mind for these characters.
Well, I'll start with Jaden because he joined the project first, and I was familiar with his work. He's been around for a bit. I mean, it's always kind of amazing to see somebody grow up on screen, right? I remember, I think Low Tide was maybe the first time I saw him. Of course, I saw It, and more recently, like Defending Jacob, or gosh, maybe it was even like St. Vincent or the Cameron Crowe film. The guys worked with, both of them have worked with, a ton of incredible directors. So I'm proud to join their company. I think when Ricky and I wrote this, I knew that if we wrote something that was, if we wrote two young men, that we might have a shot at working with some young, exciting actors who want to prove that they can do more than what they've been cast in the past, right?
Yep.
And this is kind of my producer brain rolling, because when you make an independent film and you don't have a lot of resources, you got to offer people something that they can't get from the studios, right? And the studios just want Asa to do Otis, and they want Jaden to do Defending Jacob, and but no actor I want to work with wants to, just be repeating themselves, especially at this pivotal moment where they've already been in the industry for a decade or so. And I know what that's like. When I was 22, I was kind of like, is everything I've been doing, is that what I want? And so they're open-minded, and but also interested in finding something new in acting and performance. And I got a very deep and interesting read from Jaden the first time that we met. I knew he could do it, and I think there was a little trepidation on his side that we might be in some of the similar territory as these like kind of wealthy brat characters that he played, and I really appreciate him calling that out so that we could get to work making sure that this character wasn't like one of those that he flirted with in the past. He's a very heady guy. Yeah. But then, the other thing was, so I believe in actors. I love actors. And the ones that I really love are the ones that read our script and are like, I would love to do this. And I want to go the distance, and I want to be challenged, and I want to take risks, and I want to try things. And I want to do, 2 weeks of rigorous rehearsal in order to discover stuff that we wouldn't necessarily get if we just read it together for the first time on day one. But then with Jaden, there's this whole other thing where he gets in front of the lens and you're like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that with your eyes, Yeah. I didn't know you could do that with your face. And that was just incredible because you plan everything out, but then, you live for those moments where you're surprised, and those moments when they happen on set are just beautiful, and you never forget them. And I think that the combination of Jaden's, like, maybe it was on the third or fourth day where I was just like, oh, there's something I can't really control here, but it's very exciting between the two of them. Because we started shooting, we shot the Texas stuff first, so we did 2 weeks of rehearsal. Asa, I mean, he brought so much. Asa knew that as soon as I started talking to him, I was like, you know, audiences relate to you in one way because of your Otis character and how that guy is he's very friendly, he's warm, he's approachable. Like on this movie, I want to play with that. I want to subvert that in a way. I want you to go into a sort of nastier place because you can get away with a lot more than other actors. And of course he knows that. And he was really excited to explore that territory too. And he would say, hey, we can go a little further. Like, let's make him a little meaner. Let's make him a little bit more, let's push it. And, you know, you love to hear that as a director. So we put tremendous amount of thought into wardrobe, into the way they talk and the way they walk. And the two guys really, I'm so happy that we brought, it's not a common move on an indie film to bring in an English actor to play an American and fly them over. But I think it was perfect because, one, Asa doesn't know these kids. So I think his not growing up around young Americans made it easier for him to have like a less clouded relationship with this character as we created him. And I also just think he showed up with his accent, with all these ideas, and for everybody on set, you know, whether behind the camera or in front, it was like, oh wow, okay, this guy, he's serious. He's bringing a lot. Like, I'm going to up my game too. And that's the other greatest thing you can ask for from an actor, is to show everybody that he cares, that he wants the movie to be as good as it possibly can be, because then you don't have to convince anybody else to try hard.
Their chemistry together is amazing. And I do have to say that and what Asa brings as Solomon, you really develop sympathy for him at one point. Once you meet his father, Chris Bauer's performance as Beaver is amazing. And once you meet him, you start really understanding Solomon more. And your heart really breaks as we get into that third act. And he is a heartbeat in this film. And it's just so incredible watching him. But you brought up two really key things here. You brought up the costuming. Emily Constantino did an amazing job with the costuming, creating these two different worlds that these boys come from. But then watching Jaden's character of Balthy morph, once he gets down in Fort Worth, down with Solomon, he starts morphing into more of the quote-unquote trendy trailer trash look. So the costuming is just fantastic here. She did an amazing job executing your vision. And similarly, your production design, Stephen Phelps, also creates two very distinct worlds. The trailer that Solomon lives in with his grandmother is spectacularly done. From an overly cluttered, hoarding, we don't clean, grandma's sick point of view, and then the polish and the glass and chrome and being in a fishbowl world that Balthy is in New York City. So your two craftspeople, your two artisans right there helped define this film so much. They just did an amazing, amazing job, Oscar.
Well, that's thank you so much, and I appreciate you calling them out, because it really I was so lucky to work with incredible collaborators who believed in the movie, and when you have great people like that in front of and behind the camera, it makes everything so much more enjoyable and inspiring, and it makes the movie so much better. Mostly what I'm good at is just hiring great people.
Well, you certainly did that with our hero Balthazar, in front of and behind the camera. Now, I'm curious, for you and Ricky, where did the idea for this story come from? Because you're tackling a lot of things here. The youth gun culture, misogyny, a performative society, the cry for attention, parents who are problematic, exhibitionism, exploitation to it, especially when it comes to Balthy. What was the impetus for this? How did you guys craft and create this story?
Yeah, we're just some pretty sick guys. Ricky and I have known each other since we were 17 years old. I don't know if you know that, and part of sometimes this project feels a little bit like returning to that mindset when we first met. And but I mean, I can give you a more specific story. This wasn't the first script that we wrote, and around the time that Uvalde happened, there were a lot of young people who had been messaging on like social media platforms with the Uvalde shooter, who was, like many people on the internet, just sending extreme messages out to strangers and hoping somebody engaged, and I think probably just trying to get some attention. And there were a few that were mentioned in the FBI report that I read about, and we were saying kind of like, I mean, I don't know if you heard that the shooting that happened in British Columbia like a few weeks ago or a month ago was like that shooter had been asking ChatGPT questions and talking about this plan to shoot up the school. And the employees at ChatGPT knew this. They flagged it, but nobody did anything about it, right? Mm-hmm. And similarly, when people were messaged by this stranger online from Uvalde, who is sending out, extreme and violent messages, and even on the day of the shooting was messaging people and saying, "I just shot my grandma in the face," and people were responding. If they were responding at all, they were responding like, "Oh, cool," because they just assumed that he's making empty threats and trying to get attention, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you almost can't blame them, because that's how a lot of us have started reacting to bad things on the internet. They just happen all the time, and we sort of feel like we can't change them, right? And so the impetus for the creation of Balthazar is, who might get a message like that and actually do something about it? And why would he do something about it? And I was sort of following a lot of these like cryfluencer types and people who turn their personal tragedies into content on social media, and that kind of became this. I was like, oh, what if he's like that too? He's wealthy, so he has the means to do something. He's grown up in a situation where all of the he's being told that he's going to school with powerful people and wealthy people, and he's being raised to change the world and be a powerful figure. He's got the money, and like, he would be the guy who I want to see get that message and actually do something about it.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we have girls involved too, because you always got to have obsession or lust for a girl, and they have been shunned. Both of them have been shunned by these girls that they like. And that's always a very powerful motivator in young people. Texting me, we've got to wrap, but I do have to ask you, Oscar, about developing your visual grammar with your DP, with Chris Messina. I love the visual grammar. I love how you focus in, especially when we're in Texas, and you're really focusing on tight two shots, Your close-ups throughout the film are very judicious but extremely effective. So I'm curious how you and Chris developed your visual grammar.
Well, I've known Chris for about 15 years, and we've worked on a number of things together, movies where he was operating, and we made a show together called Chillin' Island that he was the DP on. He's sort of like me. He does lots of different kinds of projects. He's super equipped in documentary. We're both people who get called when nobody has any money, but they want to be good. And Chris, we're roughly the same age, and we both revere movies, and I'll feel incredibly lucky to get to make one and work on one. So we have a shared grammar for the movies that we like and the movies that have shaped us. So it makes it very easy to share references. And I'll say with, this movie, I told him from the start, the most important thing is that the performances work, and that the audience is like tracking and relating and connecting and like with these characters and the arcs that we're going on, and we're keeping the audience in it, and we're right there with these two boys. I don't want to feel removed. I don't want to be like a cold kind of clinical observer. I want to be hanging out with them. I want to be on the ground with them. And so it starts. There's certain things that we just can't do, and that's really helpful when you're making a movie and deciding how you're going to do it. What can't we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a movie where we have a crane. This isn't a movie where we've got big like fly swatters and massive lights and drones and things like that. This is a human movie. We're right there with these guys, and I think that coming up with references of the movies that made really strong impressions on us when we were teenagers in the 90s, from that kind of era of kind of the peak of independent film, where which I wanted this movie to feel like those movies, because when I was a kid, those movies inspired me, and those movies made me feel like I was I wanted to show them to other people, and so there's those references, but really it's about giving the audience the experience of being right there with these boys. So like, you're going to get jokes that you might not get otherwise, and you're also not going to be able to look away when you might want to. And I instead of trying to break down each sequence into a series of shots, so it's almost like pre-edited.
Mm-hmm.
What Chris and I came up with much more was, whenever we could, we would shoot the entire scene all the way through. And what that meant was that the actors never know when Chris is going to point the camera at them,
mm-hmm.
right? So instead of, the camera's behind me and like nobody's seeing my face so I can kind of tune out, you don't know that maybe we're going to arc around and see your face, which means that everybody's on, right?
Yep.
There's an electricity that's sort of contagious, and Chris is a part of that. He's sort of playing jazz with the actors, and I'm really pleased with the way that it came together. It's an extension of what 15 years of trust will do, and I feel so lucky to have not just Chris, but Ricky, who I made the movie with, and Nate and Aaron, who edited it, Steve Phelps, who production designed it. Most of these people I've been working with for over 10 years, which to have all that shared experience infusing each creative decision is really something I'm so grateful for.
Well, it all came together with this one, Oscar. Our Hero Balthazar, you cannot look away from it. And the style that you and Chris have for shooting this and ensuring that everybody is on, that accounts for all of the emotionality, the raw emotion that we're seeing on everybody's faces.
It's nice, right? Like when you feel like you're, as an audience, you feel like you're discovering something with Chris, right?
Yes.
Like and then you don't quite, it keeps you on your toes because you don't know where it's going to go. And that kind of experience for the viewer, that's a very difficult thing to do if you're, from a production standpoint, if you're trying to keep everything hyper controlled with dollies and all this like hyper controlled movement.
Yeah.
So for me, I find it so invigorating as an audience member to watch this camera that's keeping you on your toes and often discovering and who knows, you don't know what it's going to do just next.
It just job so well done, Oscar. I was riveted from beginning to end. Other people are going to be riveted when they watch this. And I, for one, cannot wait to see what you and your team put together and bring me for a second directorial feature.
Well, just buckle up.
I'm ready. I'm ready, Oscar.
All right. I'll hold you to it, Debbie.
Trust me. You're not going to have to hold me too hard because I'm right there just waiting. Oscar, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today about Our Hero Balthazar. It really is. It is a brilliant calling card for you as a director. Brilliant.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. And have a great rest of your day. And that was Oscar Boyson talking about Our Hero Balthazar. Now, if you're in New York and listening to the show right now, you've already had a chance to see the film in theaters as it opened on Friday. And if you're in LA, the film opens this Friday, Good Friday as it happens. And then we'll be expanding across the United States throughout the month of April. You do not want to miss this film, especially after you've just listened to Oscar Boyson talking about the making of and breaking down the performances, the casting, which are the core element, the critical elements of this film. So be on the lookout for it. That's all the time we have for today's show. I could probably keep going, but to give you another interview is going to run us about another 45 minutes. And it is a holiday week. Passover starts Wednesday evening. Good Friday is Friday. Easter is next Sunday. So I do wish all of my listeners and readers a blessed holiday week and season, especially in these fraught times. But join me again next week when I'll be chatting with writer-director Joshua Enck about the historical drama A Great Awakening. Now, you might want to break out your history books or Wikipedia and read up a bit on A Great Awakening. And actually, the event called the Great Awakening back in the 1700s. But you want to read up on it, on A Great Awakening, and Reverend George Whitefield, and Benjamin Franklin. Fascinating. Whitefield is a fascinating person, and the whole idea and the Great Awakening was such a crucial period, and helped the colonies, gave them the impetus for the Revolutionary War. And so much of this is authentic. There is, of course, literary license taken throughout, but it is a great film, and the fact that a lot of it takes place in 1740s, 1750s, 1770s Philadelphia, and they actually built the entire, Philadelphians will get this, built the entire 1700s Market Street as it was. And they built it up in Lancaster, which is where my eldest nephew happens to live. So there's a lot of fun stuff I'm going to be talking about this film next week. So, right now, put our hero Balthazar on your radars. If you're in New York, go see it. If you're in LA, go see it Easter weekend. And then I'll be back with you next Monday. So until then, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.